What can Zelda Breath of the Wild learn from Red Dead Redemption 2? Actually, a lot. Since
Rockstar have been the video game industry's master of open world detail and real life close proximity immersion, and no title gets close in this regard to the game changing landmark that is Red Dead Redemption 2. Nearly every interaction in this game has an effect, animation or consequences, and that is no overstatement. The game more than any other might have served the Zelda team with the template of what to change in Hyrule from Breath of the Wild, besides taking us on the ground and hopefully on the water. Oh, and providing us a deeper character-driven story, giving us more enemy and boss variety, and bringing back proper Zelda dungeons. Now before we move on, I just want to highlight that series producer Eiji Aonuma and director Hidemaru Fujibayashi have stated in interviews that they played Red Dead Redemption 2 not long after its release in 2018. I think the Zelda team might look at this for a good reason, since what Red Dead Redemption 2 provides is unrivaled immersion and attention to organic detail, which is all about recreating what we see in our own world as closely as possible in their games. All this development pain in order to provide in-game real-life immersion, for real-life animations, for literally everything, activities that you would expect in a world like this, and a next-gen level experience in literally every action, movement and decision you make. And there's just so much to go over, so we'll start with the most crucial blunder of Breath of the Wild: not being able to pet Doggos. In Red Dead Redemption 2, you cannot only pet Doggos, but they will also be excited as soon as they see you next time you pass by. And if you don't pet them, they might bite you. Yes, priorities first. But for real, there's just so much to select from here. From the Zelda classic fishing, but in so many different locations.
You, sir, are fish.
Most NPCs have real-life personalities and conversations. Naturally, this depends on the voice acting of each NPC that is not crucial to the story, which is hard to tell if Zelda will have anytime soon. But if Aonuma and Fujibayashi have decided that this is a way to make the world more believable, since it is, then there is plenty to learn from Red Dead Redemption 2's NPCs that feel like real people with real lives and opinions. Next, we have even deep organic AI for NPCs, monsters, enemies, and wildlife alike, in particular when it comes to realistic behavior. We saw traces of this in Breath of the Wild, where NPCs would run inside when it began to rain, and sometimes attack back when you attempt to attack them. But there's definitely improvement potential after seeing what Red Dead Redemption 2 did, like animals hunting other animals, or even NPCs like monsters did in Breath of the Wild. Making a stand against, say, bears to scare them away, small changes that will combined make our perception of Hyrule deeper and far more immersive. You know, when Rockstar said that they will deliver the most living, breathing world, then yes, they actually surpassed Zelda in many ways. Over to one of my favorite forms of immersion holding features in Red Dead Redemption 2, picking up actual produce and holding it in the palm of your hand, or selecting your wares from a catalog. We already had some of it in Breath of the Wild, but without the animation of Link actually walking up to the product, picking it up, looking on it, and upon buying it, placing it in his pocket. The same should be the case when we sell diamonds to vendors. You pick them out of your bottomless pocket, look at them, the price you're gonna get for selling them, and then hand them over with a physical animation cutscene to the vendor. The inventory menu should not be as immersion breaking as in past Zelda installments. Now on to interaction with nature, as in Red Dead Redemption 2, weapons, clothing, and even our character would get dirty, which would affect the ability of our weapon and how dirty or wet Arthur Morgan looks in the game. In Breath of the Wild, we saw some of this realism fulfilled when walking out of water, as Link's clothes and hair would be wet for some time. But Red Dead Redemption 2 took it to the next level, with NPCs commenting and even mocking or even complimenting your current look, stench, and ridiculous outfits, which we absolutely could have, especially with the clothing combinations that Breath of the Wild offered. Gerudo cross-dressing Link walking into Hateno, that should bring a reaction from NPCs. And who better to take care of the hero of the Wild's current appearance and looks than Zelda? In Red Dead Redemption 2, we had characters who would either force you to take a bath or help you clean up if you desired it. Which brings us to our next point. Grooming, since hair growth over time is another example of immersion in video games. And since Breath of the Wild and its sequel are organic experiences, and Red Dead Redemption 2 definitely gave us a lot of hair and beard options, and then I'm just thinking for myself. Imagine Link being Zelda's stylist and Zelda being Link's stylist. The idea of barbers is an interesting one, which could make sense with Zelda's shorter hair, teasing more customization in Breath of the Wild sequel, and making it even more interactive and fun. Say that Zelda suggests a style for Link from a palette like this one made by fellow Norwegian and cartoonist Malin T. Falk. Then have her talking to Link while doing his hair, and Link while making some noises and Zelda commenting to his suggestions. It would be something that players are likely to enjoy after being able to dress Link in many different types of clothing and armor and upgrade those by visiting great fairies. In fact, some headgear in Breath of the Wild did already style Link's hair, so this would actually not be a difficult leap to make, more of an evolution when you think of it. Not sure about hair dyeing though, but if that could be an option, then we have Sage and Senna at the Kochi dye shop ready to serve close to Link's home in Ateno. And styling up Link and Zelda would make sense if there would be some dating scenario, so maybe side quest involved within the game, in particular in the towns and villages. Nintendo handled the love thread within Skyward Sword's linear context well, but in this continued adventure in an open world, they could make it an optional questline that isn't specifically tied to the main quest. This one in turn could have a slight impact on the ending of the game. Say, getting the best ending, and you know exactly what that's gonna be. And there's far more interaction that could be included in the sequel. Like, say, more interaction with the environment. In Red Dead Redemption 2, we could see snow falling off branches when we touch them, and so on. Obviously, in Breath of the Wild, we could climb far more than what is possible in Red Dead Redemption 2, and also fly into the horizon. But the examples I have brought up here are only scratching the surface of the attention to real-world and real-life detail found in Red Dead Redemption 2. And this is what we want from our Zelda games. Solid questline with proper dungeons, and Breath of the Wild gameplay with even more realism, also and a closer proximity, since the philosophy as to how the Zelda series should evolve is actually rather simple. Keep the great stuff in, and in no way, shape or form cut it out in the next installment. And if you replace it, then with something that is even greater. Just don't downgrade the last experience from a gameplay perspective. We don't expect Breath of the Wild sequel to implement all the god level of gameplay detail, animations, ragdoll physics, and close proximity immersion created by the massive, and I mean gigantic, Rockstar team. That would be an inhumane task to ask of the much smaller Zelda team. But bringing even some of the refined examples that we have detailed in the last couple of minutes to add to or expand similar existing mechanics in Breath of the Wild would significantly elevate our experience in Hyrule. Since open world, or in this case, Zelda open air experiences, are all about filling the world we play in with life, activities that will first divert our attention from the main quest, and then from that side activity to other side activities that feel random and completely organic to the world that we reside in. In other words, adding depth to the world. And that way always having something to return to and replay, even after hundreds of hours in the game. Breath of the Wild has much of this in its DNA, but as Red Dead Redemption 2 clearly demonstrated, there's still plenty to build upon. All of this, and our most notable examples from Red Dead Redemption 2, where things does not always go your way, is what makes me so glad that the Zelda team are reusing the interactive Breath of the Wild map, with existing activities in these locations, since that makes it simpler to add more stuff like petting doggos, a more immersive buying and selling experience, adding many more activities that were simply not present in Breath of the Wild. Say like fishing with a rod, and more in-depth hunting, new animations for when we eat consumables or cook. The latter makes far more sense now that we might be cooking and sharing our meals with Zelda. On top of that, we'll hopefully see more new animations for all types of movements and actions Link and Zelda do in the world, and in particular when it comes to increased customization. Walking up to the clothing that is exhibited before buying it within Breath of the Wild settlements was a step in the right direction, and an example beside taming animals and registering horses of the emphasis of organic detail and immersion in Breath of the Wild. It is just that Rockstar through Red Dead Redemption 2 took this idea of an organic world and went completely overboard, turning us who have played it into spoiled brats when it comes to the level of realism that we expect in future video games. And this, along with the main quest and its dungeons, is where we hope that the Zelda team has put most of their time and attention into throughout 2019 and 2020, and now 2021. Surpassing Red Dead Redemption 2 in this field should not be the goal, but rather using it to make the Breath of the Wild 2 experience deeper, richer, even more organic, and most of all immersive when it comes to physics, human and wildlife interaction, an element that the Zelda team nailed with the physics and weather engine in 2017. And I think I will leave it at that, since I don't want to overhype the upcoming Zelda to Red Dead Redemption 2's level of immersion. But if you agree that some of it should make it into hopefully 2021's, or if needed 2022's greatest game, then be sure to press that like button, share this video so more Zelda fans can watch, subscribe as we're pushing for 300,000 subscribers, press that notification bell, and again for all notifications. Finally, I have to thank all our great patrons on patreon.com/commonrealm that you see in the bottom screen, and in particular our royal producer Charles Shash, and also our members here on YouTube. You are the best, and to all of you, please enjoy one or both of these two awesome videos.